Imagine losing complete control of your aircraft at 38,000 feet, plunging through darkness over the Atlantic Ocean with no way to understand what's happening. This nightmare became reality for 228 souls aboard Air France Flight 447 on the night of May 31, 2009. What started as a routine transatlantic journey from Rio de Janeiro to Paris transformed into one of aviation's most haunting mysteries, disappearing without a trace in waters so deep that recovery seemed impossible. The Airbus A330, barely 5 years old and fresh from a major overhaul, simply vanished from radar screens. Air traffic controllers waited for routine check-ins that never came. For nearly 2 years, the world could only speculate about what happened in those final moments above the dark Atlantic waters. A routine departure that evening in Rio. Flight 447 pushed back from the gate carrying 216 passengers representing nearly 30 different nationalities. French, Brazilian and German citizens formed the majority, a mix of business travelers eager to close deals and families beginning their European vacations. The aircraft itself represented modern aviation at its finest, an Airbus A330-200, the crown jewel of Air France's fleet, powered by 2 reliable General Electric engines with an impeccable maintenance record totaling 19,000 flight hours. The crew comprised 3 highly qualified pilots, a requirement for this 13-hour duty period exceeding standard regulations. Captain Marc Dubois, at 58 years old, brought nearly 11,000 flying hours to the cockpit, including 1,700 specifically on the A330. His 2 first officers, 37-year-old David Robert and 32-year-old Pierre-Cedric Bonin, added thousands more hours of combined experience, ensuring multiple layers of expertise for the long ocean crossing ahead. Into the storm belt, the first few hours proceeded exactly as planned. Climbing smoothly to their cruising altitude of 35,000 feet, the aircraft settled into the rhythmic hum of long-haul flight. Passengers reclined their seats, flight attendants distributed meals, and everything felt reassuringly normal. Around 1:35 a.m., Flight 447 entered oceanic airspace, leaving South American radar coverage behind and beginning the lonely stretch across the Atlantic where aircraft communicate primarily through position reports. But ahead lay nature's most temperamental region, the Intertropical Convergence Zone. This equatorial belt, where northern and southern trade winds collide, generates a continuous band of thunderstorms stretching thousands of miles across the ocean. Unlike storms elsewhere, these tropical systems produce deceptive radar signatures and minimal lightning, appearing far less threatening than their actual intensity. Pilots crossing the Atlantic know this area demands constant vigilance, careful route selection, and sometimes unavoidable turbulence. The weather dilemma inside the cockpit. Captain Dubois and First Officer Bonin monitored their weather radar, observing the developing storm cells ahead. They discussed climbing to 37,000 feet to fly above the weather. But the warm tropical air made this impossible. Thinner air at higher temperatures reduces lift, preventing safe altitude increases at their current weight. The crew dimmed their instruments and illuminated the landing lights, standard practice for penetrating cloud layers at night, allowing better visual assessment of weather conditions. "It looks like we're entering the cloud cover," one pilot remarked. "It would have been good to climb now. It's going to be turbulent for my rest." Around 2 a.m., following Air France procedures, Captain Dubois departed for his scheduled rest period, leaving the 2 first officers in command. 6 minutes later, they notified cabin crew of moderate turbulence expected within 2 minutes, and passengers heard the familiar chime instructing them to fasten their seatbelts for the bumpy ride ahead. The cascade begins. What happened next unfolded with terrifying speed. As Flight 447 encountered an updraft, passengers heard an unusual sound like rice being thrown against windows, the distinctive noise of ice crystals pelting the fuselage. These crystals, innocent individually, began accumulating inside the aircraft's 3 pitot tubes, small probes measuring air pressure to calculate airspeed. Built-in heaters normally melt such ice instantly, but the concentration overwhelmed them. Within seconds, all 3 probes clogged completely. The consequences cascaded through the aircraft's systems like dominoes. Airspeed readings plummeted from 275 knots to 139 knots, then became completely invalid. The autopilot, unable to trust its data, disconnected with a distinctive warning tone. Flight director guidance bars vanished from the displays. Most critically, the aircraft's flight control law changed from normal to alternate 2, removing protections against stalls, excessive bank angles, and overspeed conditions. The sophisticated Airbus suddenly became far more sensitive to pilot inputs, demanding manual flying skills that hadn't been required moments before. Confusion in the cockpit. "I have the controls," First Officer Bonin announced, grabbing his sidestick. But something went terribly wrong. Instead of maintaining level flight, he pulled back on the stick, commanding a nose-up attitude. The aircraft began climbing rapidly, 1,800 feet per minute, then 6,000 feet per minute, while simultaneously triggering the stall warning. A stall occurs when wings can no longer generate sufficient lift, and the aircraft literally falls from the sky despite engines running. Standard recovery requires pushing the nose down, not up. Yet Bonin continued, pulling back on his controls, increasing pitch to 11 degrees, then 16 degrees. The aircraft shook violently as it exceeded its maximum angle of attack, entering a full aerodynamic stall. Meanwhile, Bonin fought lateral control problems, overcorrecting with excessive left and right stick movements that made the aircraft roll unpredictably. "I don't have control of the aircraft anymore," he declared. "I don't have control of the aircraft at all." The relief first officer attempted helping with his own control inputs, but neither pilot coordinated effectively, sometimes working against each other rather than together. The impossible descent. Captain Dubois rushed back to the cockpit 2 minutes after the crisis began, but the situation had already spiraled beyond recovery. Flight 447 had climbed to 38,000 feet and now plunged downward at 10,000 feet per minute. The pilots, confused by contradictory instrument readings and continuous stall warnings. "What are you doing? What's happening?" the captain demanded. "We're losing control of the aircraft here," came the reply. The aircraft descended through 28,000 feet, then 20,000, then 10,000 feet. Critically, throughout this entire descent, First Officer Bonin maintained back pressure on his side stick, holding the aircraft in a stalled condition despite multiple warnings. The relief first officer briefly attempted pushing forward to lower the nose, the correct recovery technique, but Bonin continued pulling back simultaneously, creating dual input that averaged their commands and prevented recovery. At 4,000 feet, ground proximity warnings blared. "Pull up, pull up." Tragically, they were already pulling up, which was exactly the wrong action. 3 minutes and 30 seconds after the crisis began, Flight 447 struck the Atlantic Ocean at high speed. All 228 people aboard perished instantly. Lessons from the depths. For nearly 2 years, Flight 447 remained lost beneath 13,000 feet of water, its black boxes silent in the deep. Finally, in April 2011, underwater search teams located the wreckage, and by May, both flight recorders had been recovered and analyzed. France's Bee Safety Agency issued its final report in July 2012, revealing shocking truths about training gaps and human factors in modern aviation. The technical failure: frozen pitot tubes lasted only 1 minute before the ice melted and instruments returned to normal. But by then, the pilots' inappropriate responses had placed the aircraft into an unrecoverable stall. The investigation revealed that neither first officer had received adequate training for high-altitude stall recognition and recovery during manual flight. Simulator sessions focused on low-altitude stalls during approach and landing, not cruise conditions where different techniques apply. The Bee issued multiple recommendations: mandatory high-altitude stall training, improved pitot probe designs, cockpit image recorders capturing instrument panels, and better crew coordination procedures. Perhaps most importantly, they emphasized that modern automation can create automation dependency, where pilots lose manual flying skills essential during system failures. Air France 447 proved that technology alone cannot guarantee safety. Human skills, training, and decision-making remain irreplaceable. We've explored one of aviation's most complex accidents together, examining how a minor technical issue combined with human factors to create catastrophic results. This story reminds us that behind every safety statistic are real people, families, and lessons that have made flying safer for millions since that tragic night. If you found this documentary valuable, please subscribe to the World Documentaries for more in-depth investigations into events that changed our world. What aspect of this accident affected you most? Do you have questions about aviation safety or experiences you'd like to share? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspectives help create meaningful discussions that honor those we've lost while educating future generations. Hit that like button if this documentary gave you new insights, and share it with anyone interested in understanding how we learn from tragedy. Together we explore the stories that shape our world. Thank you for watching.